this, because they don't have a strategy of their own. That's the point to be made here. They can spend as much money as they want, but because they lack that strategizing capacity, because they don't have a credible diplomacy, and because, most important of all, because they don't have an authentic narrative. You know, we keep saying Saudi Arabia is Wahhabi, Wahhabi, and we can go on about that for until the end of time. But the point is that, you know, Saudi Arabia as a nation state, as a regional power, it doesn't have a credible narrative to counter the Iranian narrative. That's why they make mistakes one after the other.
They do have a narrative here. If I go to Kareem, you know, Secretaries Mattis and McMaster are traveling with the president. And what's really interesting here is that Mahan brings up a very interesting point. I mean, you know, to self-dilute yourself, knowing the origins of terrorism and the connections between Saudi Arabia and what's happening in Syria and elsewhere. But there's something that blinds all of them, and it's their hatred of Iran. They are willing to turn a blind eye to all of these tragic things and very difficult truths because they have a blind hatred for Iran. And I think that's what it gets down to. Go ahead.
Yeah, that is very true. You know, Iran in itself has shown an incredible amount of restraint so far. You know, even though the Crown Prince went out and said we're going to take the war inside Iran's borders, has made all kinds of you know, statements just to intimidate Iran, but Iran, on the other hand, has shown an incredible amount of restraint. And that is what is bugging them as well. Now, we're talking about a country that has such surveillance powers that they can count the hairs on a grasshopper's leg. How can they miss 150 trucks, a convoy of 150 ISIS trucks that are going by freely? You know, that is a question you need to ask yourself. Now, there's another thing that is also in the equation that people are not talking too much because they tend to keep quiet and let this play out itself, and that is Israel. You know, because America on one hand has promised Israel that it is going to be the most powerful player in the region. Now, anytime they sell arms to Saudi Arabia, they are going to have to go back to Israel and give them concessions. You know, so
Mahan, let me go to you here. I mean, again, it's kind of a knock-on effect. It's an arms race here because you have the Saudis, then you have the Israelis, and then you have other countries in the region that feel like they have to match or keep up. I mean, this is a senseless arms race that is unnecessary.
Iran will never enter into an arms race. They're much more clever than that. You see, if you look at the Iranian defense budget, it's the lowest in the region, bar Yemen. Yeah, but at the same time, despite having a very low defense budget, Iran has very credible military forces because it relies on indigenous capacity, it relies on military leadership, it relies on a credible ethos, and also an indigenous arms industry to keep going. And you know, despite all the sanctions that are imposed on Iran in terms of trying to restrict the country's defense capability, Iran is still, you know, the main power in the region in terms of its in terms of its military. And I think if the Saudis are ever foolish enough to actually, you know, I don't think they are, but let's say, you know, if they make that dreadful mistake of following through with their words and try to do something silly, I think they would get a very robust response.
I'm sure they would. Gentlemen, I have to jump in here. We've run out of time. Fascinating.